If you have a tendency to get too close to your two-handed backhand, so you're getting a little jammed, or too far away so you're reaching for the ball, I want to help you with that in this video. And what we're going to be doing is going through a few different flow sequences for footwork patterns to improve your movement to the ball so that you can set up in better positions. And that's going to be one of the keys to being able to hit a high quality stroke, because if you're not set up the right distance from the ball, it really throws the biomechanics off and creates a lot of problems. So I hope you enjoy the video. If you do, it'd be great if you could give me a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel before, really appreciate it if you could do that as well. The hard part about spacing on your two-handed backhand is that every single shot that you deal with is slightly different, and that means there's no perfect way to move and set up in position for a shot. You need a repertoire of different footwork patterns that you can use in the appropriate situation. So I'm going to be showing you 3 different footwork steps that you can use, and showing you a few different flow sequences that you can use to build them and blend them together so that you can use them appropriately on court. Now, for all of the sequences that we're going to be doing and for the footwork patterns that we're going to be doing, the end result is we're going to be loading off your back leg or your outside leg. So as a right-hander, it's going to be your left leg. As a left-hander, it would be your right leg, because that's where we're going to drive the power and start the biomechanics for all of your strokes. So whatever step we use, we're going to be loading into this outside leg. And as you load into that outside leg, you're going to finalize your unit term. So however that looks for you, whatever position you have your racket in for your unit term, here we're just focusing on the footwork, but you have to finalize the unit turn as you load into that last step, because then you're going to be stepping in it to your shot. Doesn't matter whether you're hitting from that neutral stance that I've just done, where I'm stepping in there. If I'm hitting from a closed stance, I'm still driving from this back hip, or if I'm hitting from some variation of an open stance, it all comes off this hip. So that's going to be the end point for the steps that we're going to be working on. Okay, step 1 is going to be a crossover step. So for the crossover step, I am landing from a split step. Generally, we're going to do it after the split step, because we're using the crossover step to cover a lot of ground. So it'll be split step into a crossover step. Now, as you can see, I'm landing nice and wide and low and stable from my split step. Hopefully I'm landing just after my opponent makes contact, so we can use the elastic to move more quickly. I'm also, for the drop step, I'm bringing the foot underneath. Ball of the foot is landing underneath my hip. I've got a shin angle, and that allows me to drive into the ground and cover as much ground as possible. So that is what the crossover step looks like. And obviously, if I'm just doing one crossover step, I'm going to be finalizing that unit term as I load into this leg. Sometimes we're going to need to use a lot of power on this to cover a lot of ground. Sometimes it's just going to be a little bit smaller, and maybe we won't use the drop step. Maybe we'll just plant our foot and step across. Both are options. You need to know how to do both. But that is the crossover step, where we're generally using it to cover a lot of ground. Next, we've got the shuffle step. A shuffle step is when the ball is a little bit closer. So again, this can happen from the split step. So I do the split step, I shuffle. That's why it's called a shuffle step. So I'm pushing off the outside leg, shuffling into my unit turn as I load, and then I could be hitting from an open stance, or I could be stepping in for a neutral stance or a closed stance. But what we're focusing on is the shuffle itself. And for the shuffle, I'm pushing off this leg, and then I'm following it like so. So pushing off. Or you could just think about starting from there, pushing off. Or you could just think about being in this position and just practicing the shuffle. But that is the shuffle step. It can happen from the split step, or it can be crossover step into a shuffle step, and we can add it onto things. But we use the shuffle step when we've got less distance to cover, and often when we're making smaller adjustments in and around the ball. And then the third step that we've got is going to be the rhythm step. So for the rhythm step, this is when we make final adjustments. This is generally where we're going to be fine-tuning our spacing. We're also going to use it to help us check our speed, because often if I've done a really big crossover step, I might just need to stabilize myself with a couple of rhythm steps or a couple of stutter steps, sometimes they get called, in order to set up and slow myself down so I can be more balanced. But for the rhythm step, we're thinking in odd numbers. So we're thinking 3s, 5s, 7s. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it looks a little bit ridiculous when I do it like that, but if I'm in speed, it's more like that, because we're always going to be stepping across, and now I start the slowing down process to then step in. Or if it's going to be 5, so that is the rhythm step, either 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, oh, I got that one wrong, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's a good idea to practice multiple variations, but they're the 3 steps that we've got. So now we're going to talk about how to practice them, which brings us on to our sequences, our flow steps. We've got 4 to work on. First one is going to be crossover into shuffle. So crossover into shuffle. And again, if you need to break it down and just start there, crossover into shuffle. Or if you need to do your crossover, stop, think about it, and then shuffle. Whatever you need to do, just get familiar with that movement. It could be a little bit more casual, or it could be a little bit faster and more aggressive. But that's the crossover into shuffle. We've then got crossover into rhythm steps. So again, crossover into the rhythm step. I can do 3s, crossover, 1, 2, 3, and then I'll hit. Crossover, 1, 2, 3. We can do 5s. And we can do 7s. And then that leaves us with the final variation. Oh, no, I'm lying. It's the 3rd variation, which is going to be shuffles into rhythm. So shuffle into rhythm. Again, we've got the options. We've got 3s, 3s, 5s, 5s, and then 7s. Okay, and that brings us into the final combination, which is going to be crossover, shuffle, rhythm. So the crossover, shuffle step, rhythm step. Crossover, shuffle, rhythm. And obviously we've got the 3, 5 and 7 options within each of those. So they're the sequences that we can work on. Obviously here I'm working on just going across the baseline, but obviously sometimes you need to move back. So maybe I might need to do a crossover step followed by a shuffle step moving backwards. Crossover followed by rhythm steps. Maybe you need to do them maybe you need to do them going forwards. So obviously they're going to look and feel a little bit different, but the base is going to be working on that lateral movement, getting used to it. Now, some of the ones that I've just done there, you might find that you never use that exact movement pattern when you're on court. So you might never go perfectly from a crossover into a shuffle to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then hit. Or you might, but by programming these things into your body, by teaching your brain about these different movement patterns, then there's the potential that you'll be able to use them. If you've never worked on any of this stuff, there is no way that you're just going to magically do this under pressure in a match when the ball's coming to you. It's one of those things you have to put a bit of effort in, go through, work on repetitions, get a number of repetitions, think about it consciously, trip over your feet, start to swear at me and get annoyed at me for showing you these stupid footwork patterns. But if you do it enough, make them automated, it's going to change things in terms of your spacing. But there is something else that's going to be really important for your spacing, and I want to talk about that now. The other thing that is really going to affect your ability to get optimal spacing on that two-hander is going to be how accurately and how early you can predict where the ball's going. Because see here we're working on the footwork, that's an essential part of it, but everything you do on court is based on how well you can see and your visual prediction and ability to read where the ball's going. And if you can't do that at a sufficiently high level, if your visual spatial awareness, your ability to judge distance and depth and ball speed isn't functioning at a sufficiently high level, you're not going to know exactly where the ball's going, and it's going to make it very hard to use the appropriate footwork, and the footwork practice is only going to take you so far. So often it's a two-pronged attack. Work on the footwork and train your visual system to improve how it functions. And if you would like help with that, that's one of the big areas that I work with players in. I have a brain-based training program where I teach players how to improve their skill level, their vision, their coordination, their eye to hand and eye to foot coordination, things like that. And that really helps them to just play at a much higher level on court. So if that's something you would like to learn more about, I have got a free masterclass that I've created that explains it in more detail. I'll place a link up there, and I'll place a link down in the description so you can check it out. And if you're interested in joining the program, it's going to explain what the next steps are. If you would like to watch another video right now, then what I highly recommend is this video here, because it's actually going to show you a couple of the visual assessments that I do with players to help them identify if there is specific things that are causing problems with spacing. So you probably want to check that one out.